All right, let's dive into a literary giant, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. This story has been capturing hearts for more than 200 years, right? It's been adapted over and over again, inspiring pretty much everyone. But what is it that makes it a true masterpiece? Let's break it down.
So, what's the deal with this book? Seriously, how does a story about courtship and social class in Regency England still feel so incredibly fresh and relevant today? Is it just a really good love story, or is there something much, much deeper going on? That's the big question we're going to tackle. Okay, first things first, we have to look at how the story is told. Because trust me, the way you experience it completely changes depending on whether you're reading the book or watching a movie. And that difference, it's a huge part of its genius. So, in the novel, Austen gives us this third-person view, but it's almost always filtered through Elizabeth Bennet's super sharp, witty mind. There's this cool technique for it called free indirect discourse, and what it does is put us right inside her head. We're not just watching things happen, we're right there with her, figuring people out, judging them. It basically makes us an active player in the story. Now, when you get to the movies, they have to play by different rules. They can't just read Elizabeth's thoughts out loud. So instead, they use everything else, the acting, the music, the way a shot is framed, to make us feel what the characters are feeling. You see a long, quiet close-up on Darcy's face, or a huge, sweeping shot of the countryside, that tells you everything you need to know about their emotions, and it hits you instantly.
And here's where you can really see that contrast side by side. The novel, it wants you to think, to analyze, to critique the society you're seeing. The film, though, it's all about pulling you into the emotions, the atmosphere. So you could say the book makes you an intellectual partner in crime, while the film makes you an emotional witness. Both are fantastic. They just get there in totally different ways.
Okay, so to get why the story is so full of tension, we have to understand the world it's set in. Regency England wasn't a free-for-all. It was a society with a super rigid set of rules. And for the Bennet sisters, these rules weren't just, polite suggestions. They were a matter of survival. At the top of the heap, you had the gentry. These were the landowning families. And for them, status wasn't just about having cash. It was about your property, your family name, and most of all, your reputation. Now, the Bennets are part of this class, but they're on really thin ice. Their home is entailed, which is a fancy way of saying only a guy can inherit it. With 5 daughters, that puts them in a seriously tough spot. And that leads us to the single most important rule of the game. For women like the Bennet sisters, marriage wasn't really about finding a soulmate. It was about economics. It was their only real path to being financially secure and respected in society. A good marriage meant you were safe. A bad one, or no marriage at all, could mean a life of being poor and dependent on your relatives. The stakes were just incredibly high.
So how was a woman supposed to win this game? She had to have accomplishments. And look at this list. She had to play music, draw, be a witty conversationalist. But here's the thing. This wasn't about self-improvement. All these skills were basically tools designed for one thing and one thing only, to make her look like a great catch on the marriage market. It was all about strategy.
And this is where all that nail-biting tension comes from. Austen is a master at showing us a world that's constantly just one wrong move away from total disaster. To really appreciate how amazing the happy ending is, we have to stop and think about what would have happened if things had gone, well, wrong. So let's play a game of what if. Let's imagine a world where Elizabeth's prejudice and Darcy's pride never go away. They just can't get past their first impressions of each other. What does that world actually look like for them?
Honestly, it's pretty bleak. To save her family, Elizabeth probably would have said yes to Mr. Collins, and she'd be stuck in a loveless, soul-crushing marriage for the rest of her life. And Darcy? He would have done his duty and married some well-to-do woman like Anne de Bourgh, without any real love or connection. The story wouldn't be a romance anymore. It'd be a tragedy about how society crushes individual happiness.
But wait, there's an even more disastrous what if. What if Darcy hadn't stepped in to secretly save the family after Lydia runs off with that scoundrel Wickham? What if the absolute worst-case scenario had actually happened? This timeline is a complete catastrophe. It shows you just how fragile their whole world was. The Bennet family's reputation, totally destroyed. In that society, the whole family paid for one person's mistakes. So the other sister's chances of marrying well? Gone. And Lydia herself would have faced a life of poverty and shame, completely cast out from society. The novel would have become this dark, depressing cautionary tale.
So when you really think about those dark alternate timelines, you start to see why Austen's actual ending is so powerful. It wasn't a given. It was a hard-won victory against some pretty terrible odds.
The real genius of Pride and Prejudice is that incredible balancing act. Austen shows us a world with very real, very harsh social and economic rules, but she still lets her characters find a happy ending. The story makes a powerful case that personal growth, good character, and making your own authentic choices can actually beat the system.
There's a quote from our source material that just nails the core message. It describes the story's world as one where love, intelligence, and integrity triumph. And that's it, right there. The ending isn't just about two people falling in love, it's about the victory of these really essential human virtues in a world that often cared more about your bank account and your last name.
And in the end, that's why this story lasts. It is so much more than just a romance. It's this incredibly smart look at how you navigate a world full of rules while fighting for your own happiness. It's a story about learning to see past our own pride and our own prejudices to find something true.
Which kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. The world of Regency England might feel like a long time ago, but that central conflict, it's absolutely timeless. So I'll just leave you with this question. What are the unwritten rules in our world? The social pressures, the expectations that shape the choices we make today? And what does it take for us to overcome them? Thanks for joining me.